Self-driving cars, some would argue they're already here. Once hailed as the future of safe, efficient transportation, lately they've got a bit of a darker image. Even the new movie Naked Gun, the Liam Neeson reboot of the Naked Gun franchise, that movie explores how autonomous vehicles are increasingly being portrayed as villains. So let's talk a little bit more about self-driving cars and where they're at right now. Benjamin Schneider joins us on the line, reporter over at Bloomberg. Benjamin, welcome to the program.
Hi, Elias. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you. Your latest piece in Bloomberg, self-driving cars take a turn towards the villainous in movies and real life. Tell me why you wrote this piece.
Well, I wrote it after seeing The Naked Gun, which you just mentioned. It's a really silly slapstick film, a reboot of the 1980s police parody franchise with Leslie Nielsen. This one has Liam Neeson in the lead role. And amidst all the silliness, there's this narrative about a self-driving car that effectively gets programmed to be a killer car that can, be manipulated by this kind of Elon Musk-esque evil tech CEO to kill whoever he wants who's stuck in this car. So Liam Neeson has this epic escape scene where he has to bust out of a self-driving car. And that got me thinking about other scenes in cinema history where there have been these similar narratives where the hero is trapped in a self-driving car and has to get out. And so that then led me to this broader discussion in the piece of, how do people really think about self-driving cars? Are they comfortable with them? What do these cultural depictions of self-driving cars say about kind of people's perspectives?
And I got to say, when I talk to people about self-driving vehicles, I sense a tremendous amount of anxiety. People feel they don't want to even try them. And I wonder why you think that is.
Well, I think it goes back to something really deep with people's relationship to cars. Historically, cars have been this way for humans to feel more autonomous, more empowered and in control, to access, the unlimited horizons of the open road, to go fast, to get where you need to go. And so when that sense of autonomy is transferred to the vehicle, I think you can get the sort of inverse feeling, a sense of disempowerment, of lack of control. And then, with the way this is actually playing out in practice with sort of surveillance and, corporate power kind of being exerted upon ordinary people and people not being able to, respond to that in the way that they want.
With Benjamin Schneider, reporter at Bloomberg, we're talking about self-driving cars. I'm also thinking, Benjamin, of that movie, Leave the World Behind, the Julia Roberts movie from Netflix, where there's that one scene where it's just white Tesla after white Tesla crashing into each other, that they've been hacked in order to do that. That's another great example from the movies of villainous self-driving cars. But let me throw one thing at you, because I just did a 2,800-kilometer road trip. I have a Tesla that has the hardware 4, right? So their latest version of their chips in the vehicle. And I have to say that of 2,800 kilometers of driving from Montreal to the east coast of Canada, back through Maine, back to Montreal, I didn't even do 100 kilometers of the 2,800 kilometers. The car, it feels like we're there. I don't think people know it. And of course, I had to be behind the wheel. I had to make sure I'm monitoring. I'm not in the back seat. I'm still technically driving the vehicle, but it feels like we're actually we're in the dawn of an era where the cars are going to drive themselves, and we're either unaware or unwilling to recognize it. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, this has been a big theme in my journalism for several years now, because I previously was a reporter in San Francisco, and I was covering the emergence of self-driving cars there, which happened, as these things tend to, first in San Francisco. And it was striking, even in 2021, 22, there were cars without drivers behind the wheel tooling around the city. And now there's even more of them. And now you can see them in many other cities as well. So, the technology works broadly. The question is, how well does it work? How comfortable are people going to be with it? And can it work in those kind of 99th percentile of scenarios that are really challenging for even human drivers to deal with? I think those questions remain to be seen. but I think you're totally right that there's a lack of kind of broader awareness of just how far along this technology is.
Do you think the public is willing to accept one death that comes from a self-driving car if they can't see maybe the 99 people who don't die because of the technology? Like, how do you grapple with that? How do you convince people that they're safe, even if someone will die eventually from a self-driving car?
Yeah. Well, I do think when the time comes with a self-driving car that is unmanned, there have been self-driving car accidents where there is a person behind the wheel, like you're describing with the Tesla autopilot system. There have been some fatalities with those kinds of systems where a person was behind the wheel. The car was theoretically in control, but it didn't. The human was supposed to take over and didn't in time. So those have resulted in fatalities. But I'm not aware of fatalities from fully self-driving cars that don't have no one behind the wheel and the car is supposed to be able to handle any scenario. Mm-hmm. I think when that does happen, inevitably it will, as more of these cars are on the road, it's going to be a big reckoning for this industry. It's going to be very interesting to see how the public reacts. I definitely could imagine a big outcry and major calls to, regulate and rein in the industry. But, sometimes with really transformative technologies, people just get used to it and are willing to accept some of the trade-offs. And maybe there will be some of the sense of the big picture. As you said, the 99 people that were saved by this technology, which I think it's increasingly clear that these cars are more careful and law-abiding than human drivers. So it would be very interesting to see what would happen in that scenario.
It's not lost on me. 1.2 million people die every year on planet Earth in car crashes. 1.2 million a year, right? So, I'd be if there's a technology that can reduce that by 90%, you'd think we'd want that. But again, I guess there's a lot of discussion on how you convince people of that. Where do you think we're going? Where do you think we're going here, Benjamin? To wrap us up.
Well, I think these technologies are only getting better. We're not going to go backwards in terms of the capabilities of these cars. I think there's going to be some really difficult conversations in terms of, how much humans will be allowed to continue to drive, in a decade or two or three when, almost all cars on the road have these kinds of capabilities. I think people will be loath to give that up. And so then you may be sacrifice some of the benefits of this technology when you've still got a huge percentage of human drivers on the road. I also think that the situation in dense cities like Montreal is a concerning one, because if you can just hail a car at a very low cost to get you half a mile, half a kilometer down the road, a trip you otherwise would have walked or taken the bus, that could be a traffic nightmare. So I think big cities are going to have to think about maybe things like congestion pricing, other kinds of measures to make sure that the sort of convenience factor doesn't kind of become a problem in itself, where you've just got way too many cars on the road.
Benjamin, come back another day and we can talk about that, because I've also wondered, I grappled with what happens to public transit, what happens to all, by the way, what happens to all the space we right now use for parking? When you don't need to park your car because the car is just really cheap and just drops you door to door and then leaves you. Thanks for the chat today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, great to talk, Elias, and happy to come back.
That's Benjamin Schneider right there, reporter over at Bloomberg.